Yes, okay. All right, welcome back to the Pastors Podcast. I am Jill.
I'm Greg.
And we are the pastors. And today he walked into film and I said, hey, did you get a new jacket? Yeah. So, hey, did you get a new jacket?
I did. And so what's interesting is we're filming this on a
Friday.
And the game, Super Bowl, is going to be on
the coming Sunday.
And this is going to be put out to see on
the day after the Super Bowl on Monday.
So, hey, you're going, hey, the 49ers won, why are you wearing a jacket? I think the Chiefs will win.
Well, you might not be able to tell what it is, so you shouldn't have told them because it's all black. I know, but it's so black, I don't even know. So they could have been like, oh, it's just a football. Maybe he just...
Well, it says it over here.
I don't know.
It says it on my back.
They can see your back.
Yeah.
That's true.
So at the first of the year, and I'm kind of a sports junkie guy, I'm thinking 49ers are the best rounded team. I still think they are, but they've kind of limped in lately with their defense. Chiefs are hitting a stride. I'm cheering for the Chiefs. I'm saying the score is going to be 31-28.
You live in Missouri. It doesn't hurt. 31?
31-28 Chiefs. And again, this is on Friday. You're going to see this on Monday, so we'll see. But a field goal can go either way, right? 3 points. But I grew up, again, in Missouri. So if you're around Missouri and you're my age, you're going to remember Jan Stenerud, Buck Buchanan, Otis Taylor, and you know all those players, right?
Nope.
And so anyway, those are the days the Chiefs, and Ed Podolak was in the back. So, really, really good teams and strong teams. So I've kind of been a Chiefs fan all my life. And my wife is Connie's from Kansas City, so she's going to say she's the biggest Chief fan. But during the game, she's cleaning the house a little bit and comes back and checks on the score.
But she gets really into it as soon as she sees it. Like, she can be, like, not paying attention. All of a sudden, she's like, what is happening? I'm like, Mom, you haven't watched the whole game.
Yeah,
but she'll be outraged at anything,
So if she's watching this, we're going to say she's the best Chiefs fan.
She is the best Chiefs fan because she would say she's been loyal her whole life. And I would say that's probably true.
Well, she likes the Royals, and that's really bad. But
yeah, well, you like the Cardinals.
Of course, this is Cardinal country.
Yes, it is, but she is from Kansas City.
Okay, she can win.
She can like the Royals. Okay.
I feel like I'm on an interview.
I didn't even ask you really a question other than did you get a new jacket, and then you just told me your life story about football.
Are you going to hire me?
I would love to be a sports analyst and to tell me who's making it to the Super Bowl because apparently you thought the 49ers would be there. As a side note, if he wasn't a pastor or doing what he was doing at a nonprofit, he would be an amazing general manager or at least just an announcer because it's really funny. I should just record him sometimes because he'll just say things and literally in 5 seconds, the announcers will say not something similar, but like the exact same comment. Because you can have a lot of comments about a play or a player or a person, but for some reason he says the exact thing the announcer says, and I don't understand it. Like, and it might be really insightful about the play, or it might just be like a funny comment about the play, but whatever he says, that's what the announcer does. I'm like, well, you have a really good ability to understand what needs to be said on television. Maybe you should do this.
I'm too old.
Anyway, we bring up interviews because that's what we wanted to talk about today. I thought it'd be a good idea just to talk through interviews, especially a lot of up-and-coming leaders when you're getting your new jobs, either maybe coming out of high school, maybe coming out of a trade school, maybe coming out of college. A lot of people aren't going to college anymore. So just a few things that we wanted to give you guys from both an employee standpoint and an employer standpoint. So we're going to start with an employee standpoint. And then we're going to kind of walk through interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I've always said this, and I haven't had to have too many interviews way a long time ago, but not recently. But I would say that when you go into an interview as a prospective candidate, don't just be interviewed, interview the employer.
Yeah.
Don't just be interviewed, go in and go, I want to also ask questions. So I set the tone up front going, hey, thank you for letting me be here today. I'm so excited about this possibility. If it's okay with you, I would love to also interview you along the way because I want to make sure it's the best fit for both of us. I just don't want a job I want a relationship. I want to have mission. I want to be on a cause with you. So.
Yeah, and let me say this too, like when we're talking to potential leaders, we're assuming you're not just trying to get a job to make it a little extra money on the side. We're talking about an interview where you're going to start a career. This is the path that you want to go to. These are good principles for any interview. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but we're probably speaking a little bit more to a solid, I'm going to be at this job for several years kind of a thing.
So be experienced. If you're going to be interviewed, be experienced. Some of these things aren't super deep, but I think we might miss it if we don't pay attention. So go to their website, drive by the building if know where you're going to be interviewed at.
Yes.
If you know some people working there, talk to them about the culture and the environment. And look at what they do. If it's on YouTube or if if you've got some journals that the company's out, and the stock price, who the founder is, who the president is, find the mission statement. Find some things online about what a consumer thinks about the organization, right? And I think you walk in ready to then interview the employer.
Right, and I think something that's really cool about that is then you have context. So when they say something, you might be able to join a conversation they didn't think you'd be able to join because they thought maybe, I used insider language, but they go, hey, I saw on your website that you guys are doing these things for outreach. That's really cool. Is there any opportunity to be involved in that? Could be a question, or anything that they do for continuing education in your job, because that's becoming a huge thing. And if that's important to you, that needs to be a question. So some people go, I don't know what questions to ask. Well, what's important to you in a job? Like, don't ask them, can I leave every day at 3:45? That's not a good idea. But ask them stuff like, hey, what opportunities do you have for me to grow in this position? Hey, this is where I want to be in however many years. That's fine to say that. Like, don't say I'm using this as a stepping stone. You're not. You're growing in that moment. So just ask them how you could learn and ask them how you could grow in that position. That's a great question.
Yeah, and I think another thing you could do is to go, well, what do I wear and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'd be good to walk into the business. I've walked into the lobby of a bank, for example, and you got casual Fridays. Are you interviewing on Friday? Are you interviewing during the week? Do they wear suits, ties, dresses? I also think along the way you'll find out pretty much who you're going to interview with. Probably somebody in HR. I mean, eventually you'll get to somebody that you might report to, but notice along the way who you're going to be talking to. So if you're talking to a 60-year-old like myself, if you are on time, I think you're going to be late. So that may not be for Jill, so Jill's going to talk about that a little bit, but as what I would do is I would leave margin and time as you go to the interview to say, what if it's a traffic jam? What if I spill something on my blouse or my shirt? Take an extra blouse and shirt in the car. What happens if I have to stop and get gas? I didn't think about that. And even if you're 15 minutes early in the parking lot, then sit there for 10 minutes, walk in. But in my case, if you're going to be interviewing with me, then be there 5 minutes early. So I'm not going, because I wonder, what kind of employee you're going to be if you're going to be on time. People say, well, that's great. Yeah, if you're 1 minute late, 2 minutes late, is that a big deal? But if you do that in the interview, and I'm interviewing you, then I'm going to go, this is going to be the routine for that person. And, typically I want you at your desk, or I want you in the room with your cup of coffee, with your notepad ready, and 5 minutes early means you got time to do that. And I call a meeting right at 9 o'clock. I want to start at 9 o'clock. And if it's over at 10, what I do is at 9:55 in a meeting, I'll say, okay, we got 5 minutes left because everybody's talking. And I want to make sure we close at 9:59 to respect people's time so they can get to the next meeting. So those kind of things for me are very important, where they may not be to a 30-year-old, but
yeah. Well, I think, and I was raised by you, so to be fair, that's important to me too. But I am perpetually 20 to 30 minutes early to things, and it's because I go, okay, it's going to take me this amount of time to drive there, which is why you need to drive by from your house, from the place where you're going from. If you're coming from another job, make that drive at that time, because you're like, oh, I went there at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I had to go there at 5 o'clock at night, and there was traffic. I didn't know that. So simulate the drive. Simulate the time of day, and then take that time and say, okay, it took me 30 minutes. How long does it take me to get ready if you're getting ready in the morning? It takes me 30 minutes. Great. Start getting ready an hour and a half early, because then you have margin for, especially if you have kids. By yourself, you might get ready in 30 minutes, but your kid might interrupt that, and it could be 40 minutes. So if you're getting ready an hour and a half early and now you have 40 and 30, okay, well, you're still fine because it was an hour and a half. You're going to be there 20 minutes early, and that's great. So people go, oh, well, I just left late. Don't do that. Like, just get ready earlier. Make yourself get up earlier. Make yourself stop doing whatever you're doing just a little bit sooner, because that's going to give you the margin you need to get out of there.
So you're saying if you're going to be the employer at 30 years old, you expect the same thing that I would?
I would, especially if you're coming, it's like dating, right? Like you do the best things on a date. You come, you smell really good, and you dress really nice. So you talked about how do people dress. If you go and see how they dress just a little nicer. If they're wearing holes in their jeans, wear jeans with no holes. Yeah. If they're wearing sweatpants, don't do that. Later do that. But like, you don't have to wear a tux or like a crazy business suit. But if they're all wearing jeans and jackets, you best at least have a jacket, possibly a tie if you're a guy. If you're a girl, make sure that you look composed and don't have just weird things going on, because you want to go a little bit above what they're doing, so that they can tell you, hey, you don't have to wear that when you come in. You don't want them to tell you, hey, you're going to have to dress up a little more.
It's really easy for a guy, for you to wear a suit and a tie, and then when you get there, you can take the tie off, you can take the jacket off, and you can roll your sleeves up if it becomes that casual, right?
Yeah.
I think the same thing for ladies. You don't have to wear a dress, but a business suit would be very appropriate, because that kind of that's kind of the midstream a little bit to go, I'm professional, but I'm also not trying to, send the wrong signal.
And so for girls too, one thing I'd say as a girl, because you're talking about, as a guy, be careful with the makeup and the perfume situation. You don't want to if you're doing a fashion thing and that's what you're applying for, that's great, do that. But if you're going to a normal business, and I love bold lipstick. I love red lipstick. It's my favorite thing to do. But when I go maybe for the first time to meet a client or something, I do not wear red lipstick. I might wear something very neutral just to look put together, but don't go overboard on your perfume, don't go overboard on your jewelry, don't go overboard on your makeup. That sends the wrong signal, and I know that might not be fair, but it's one day. So make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, not to stand out in the wrong way.
So here's a story for you. So early on, I was working at a place that we had, I think it was like 40 or 50 applications that was mailed in. And so I took the envelopes and I smelled them.
I remember this story. This is where I talked about perfume.
And I smelled them, and if they smelled like smoke, I'm like, I don't want that in our environment. And if it smelled like perfume, I'm like, okay, they're trying to send the wrong signal. So I actually didn't even open those applications. And then when I did look at the application, of course I know they're online now because old school paper, but even online I would look, and if there's a misspelled word, I push that away. If the thing was 10 pages long, I put that away. So there's one of the tricks to filling out a resume, if you're going to apply for a job, is give them enough information that you get interviewed, but not too much information where they don't want to interview you.
Yeah.
Because if you put all the information down and I know everything about you, then I kind of just want to, I guess, because sometimes you can put your picture on there, sometimes you can put your social media on there, so you can check that out. Why do I need to call you in? I know everything about you, and you want me to call you in. It's better to be in person, so give me enough to interest me.
Yeah.
But not too much where I don't think I have to.
Well, it's like a movie trailer. Like movie trailers are less than 2 minutes long for a reason. Like the movie is 2 hours long. They're just going to show you highlights enough to pique your interest and give you the problem. Do the same thing. So just say it in a short way. You don't need to use all your words.
So that's the employee.
Yes, that's the employee.
Now let's talk about the other side. If you are the employer and you're interviewing, number one, go to HR, Human Resources, and find out, or legal counsel, and I have both where I work now, and find out what you can say and what you can't say. Because you do not want to be in a lawsuit, okay? So when you listen to this podcast, we are not saying that you should follow anything that's not in your HR or legal area. So check that first. Hopefully inside of what we know we can say or can't say. For example, I work at a large place now where the Human Resource Department, they take all the interviews, they narrow it down, they find the culture, the fit, the background, and make sure make sure it works within the job description, and then they offer it. Hey, here's we saw 20 people. Here's 2 or 3 we think that'll work well. And at that point, we didn't have to interview them, but we passed the HR point, so we have to be careful what we say. So that disclaimer said, let's talk about being an employer. You know, and I also, listen, I say this all the time. I'm not that good looking. I'm not that talented, but I am honest. I am authentic, right? And so I see a lot of employers go, I've got a tricky way to see if I can hire somebody. Like I saw something the other day, and it kind of blew up a little bit. It's like this guy serves 2 cups of coffee, one for him and one for the person. And then at the end of the interview, if the person doesn't go, can I take your cup of coffee and wash after you? He doesn't hire him. And he's like, I just want to see if they're a servant. I'm like, don't play a trick. One of my favorite movies, right, is Kevin Costner, and it's the football movie where it's the draft. It's called The Draft. And inside that, they have a playbook, and they taped a $20 bill to the back of the page. And then what happens is they have these potential players, quarterbacks, read the playbook. And if they read it and they say, what did you think? Somebody will say, hey, the $20 bill, you can have it back. Thanks for having it. And then somebody doesn't say anything. They're saying, hey, did you read the whole thing? Oh, I saw the whole thing. The last page, yeah. What's on the last page? Just words. And they're lying, right? So, but that's the idea. We don't need to trick anybody. All we need to say is, I want to make sure you're the right fit, and I want to make sure I'm the right fit. And we want something that's really going to be successful here. So let's just be authentic. We don't have to play a trick, play a game, because what happens is if the employee sees you doing that, if I saw you doing that, I'm like, I don't want to work for you. If you're not going to be upfront with me and honest with me, and this is going to be gamemanship, it's not a place I want to work.
Yeah, well, nobody can read your mind. It's not a thing that happens. Your spouse can't read your mind. Your best friend can't read your mind. It's as close as they think they'll get. They'll never be able to. So don't expect the people at work to do it. So I think a really cool thing that I was reading as I was doing some generational research was, especially if you're trying to onboard some younger people, please set your expectations. I think you should this is great, and I think you should set your expectations no matter the age of the person. But honestly, tell them what time to be there. If you want them there 10 minutes early, tell them, hey, your interview starts at this time, but I really need you here at this time. Your doctor does it when you have a new patient. They say, come 15 minutes early. You might not do it, but you're not trying to get a job there. So set the expectation. Say, hey, it's okay for you to wear jeans and a suit jacket. And don't say something to try to trip them up and be like, oh, they should have done this. Like, tell them what you expect. If you want them to bring a red pen to the interview, say, hey, make sure you bring a red pen to the interview. And then listen, if they don't show up the time you asked, if they don't wear what you asked them to wear, and they don't bring what you asked them to bring, that is a great indicator that this is not somebody that's going to follow your expectations. So it's not about playing a trick, and it's not about trying to figure it out. Like, that's not fun for anybody. It might be fun for you, but that's just kind of a toxic environment to set, to say, can you figure out what I'm going to do next? That's not good leadership. So I would say set some expectations, send an email, tell them what they need to know, and make them feel at ease, because you want to get to know them. And you can't get to know them if their guard's up because they're trying to guess if they should wash your coffee cup out. That's ridiculous.
I've always, I guess I'm telling my age a little bit, but
you've done that many times. It's okay.
In the 35 years I'm hiring people, all these thousands of people I've talked to, interviewed, I always hire on 3 C's. 3 C's in this order. It's almost like a cattle gate. If you can't get past the first one, then the other 2 are not going to be open for you. So you have to, and it has to be in this order. So the first C is character, right? Are they teachable, trainable? Are they on time? Are they dependable? Are they honest? In our world, in a Christian world, are they a person of faith? So, and I can ask those things, believe it or not, from a Christian organization. If you're not, you can't do that. But it's character, right? So if you think, man, I've checked them out, they got good character, they seem like they're teachable, trainable, honest, they're hardworking. That's character, right? You can't really teach character. You got to, does a person have character? If you think the person has character, it's like that first gate's now opened. Let's go to gate number 2 in this order, and it's culture. Right? So now you have to protect your culture at all costs. Take care. You can have the most greatest all-star that wants to come in, but if you think it's going to wreck your culture that you've built up over all these years, or you want to transcend in the future, then close that gate. The third C is competency. So it's character, Do they have it? Open the gate. Culture, great culture, go to competency. But if you skip, and I've done that early in my career, I skipped and hired the very best person for the job, competency, and the person didn't have character, didn't have culture, and they wrecked the place and they left it worse than they found it.
Yeah.
So I live by principles. We talked about that. I would challenge you, if you have a better way to do it than the 3 C's, congratulations. If you don't, hire on the 3 C's in this order: character, chemistry, competence.
Yeah, and you've been calling it culture, but I was about to say, you usually say character, chemistry. Competence, but culture is
But it's the chemistry,
more of that
it's
word.
the chemistry they have with you and the chemistry they have with the team, which is really overarching culture.
Correct.
Right? So you're protecting your culture to see if they have chemistry.
So again, the order is very important. That character and then the chemistry or the culture and the competence, really, really important. Make sure you do that in that order. So that is kind of the idea of what you're looking for in an interview. And when there is one thing, before we close this, you taught me this. So when I started at the church, I had to start interviewing people. And that was very intimidating for me. So if you're a young leader who's never interviewed somebody, that can be intimidating because you're like, okay, what can I say? What can I not say? Should I ask them this? How do I ask this question? Should I talk now? Like, there's a lot that goes through your head, and that's normal. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And one thing you told me that really helped me was there's basically one question that I need to know the answer to after you've, figured out their character and if they're a cultural fit. Like, you can even ask this question before you get to the bottom of that. But this tells you a lot. You talk to the person and you say, okay, if this were your job to design and you worked here, what would you want it to be? How would it look? What would you want to do? And that answer, if you're an employee being interviewed, frame all of your answers off of that. Because that's a really good way to say, here's what I know I want to do in the future. When they ask you, here's what my values are, here's what I feel I'm good at, and then you can figure out your weaknesses and strengths inside of that. So that one question gives you lots of answers as an employee, but it also gives you a lot of answers as an employer. It doesn't have to be a perfect answer, but if somebody says, my perfect role would be to lead a team of 50 people and you're applying for a job that's a coordinator of 2 people, don't write them off. Let them finish, because that might be, hey, in the future, this person could be a leader. But if they start going off in a direction that you're like, okay, wow, this has nothing to do with the job, maybe there's another job for them that might fit, or maybe this just is the wrong thing, but it tells you a lot. Yeah. So it's a good question to ask, and it really helped me because then so many questions come out of that.
I think as you say that, that's really good. I think another thing I do is I ask open-ended probe questions. So if you say, do you like this job? That's not open-ended, it's yes or no, right? Yeah. So ask things like, describe, can you explain, right. Tell me about. If you start with those words, then what happens, as Jill said, is you start getting them talking, and if they go on a tangent, you can bring them back or whatever. But you get a little more insight because they start saying, they're like, okay, they're asking me to describe my favorite thing, or tell me about your past, or could you show me what you want out of this job? I mean, so all those things end up being. Another quick thing I would say too, because I was sort of thinking about your interview when you interviewed, is we always do this. I always want to have a female interview a female, or a male interview a male. And if you don't do that, then have 2 people in there to make sure that there's not anything that somebody says you did or didn't do discrimination-wise, or something that's said between each other, right? Maybe you have somebody in your organization who's doing the interview and then they're accused of something, or I keep the door open. You're like, you keep the door open? I said, absolutely. So if you have a door that doesn't have glass, always keep the door open, or have someone in there with you. If you've got glass, I still crack the door a little bit so it makes it feel like, that person can come in anytime they want and have a conversation if somebody's in with me. So.
And I would say whether you're a male or a female, it's always a good idea to have more than one person in the room. I think having a conversation with the 2 or 3 people doing the interview, one person can lead that interview and be in charge, but it's always good to have other employees in the room to be able to get a good perspective on what's going on. And that might be slightly intimidating, but really honestly, when you realize, okay, we have somebody from HR here, we have the person who would be my boss, and then just an employee that's on the same level as me, and we're all interviewing together, I think it kind of gives the idea that there's like a unified front. and that people might have a say in the business. So I think it's good for you to cover bases, to have more than one person in there, regardless.
What Jill's saying is true. Having more than one person in the room, if you rotate them, go to dinner in a casual setting, right? There's always those things inside just to make sure that you know that you're seeing the thing clearly.
Yeah. So that's just some ideas on an interview. Make sure that you're prepared as the candidate. Make sure that you communicate expectations. And just remember, you know what? First impressions are very important. So put your best foot forward to the best of your ability. But we've said this before, you know, you prepare, you look at the website, you get your questions ready, you look nice, you leave on time, you get there early. You do your best and you let God do the rest.
You know, and I think as we close here, as a Christian, you always want to pray, right?
Yeah.
So you're praying before. I pray during the interview. I'm talking to God while I'm listening. What should I say, not say? Again, Christian organization, so it's easy to do that. But if it's not a Christian organization and the person you're interviewing is not a Christian and that's not a requirement for you, and you're a Christian, certainly pray about it, because God will show you and He'll give you a peace that passes human understanding. And if you're not sure, we talked about this before, then don't do it. It may not be no, but not yet, because there are times you do things that you don't have peace and look back and go, that was God talking to me. What was I doing? So let God go before you. Like you said, make sure that it's something that God has for you, because He has the best for you and has the best for your organization.
Yeah. Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed this. Let us know in the comments if this works for you. If you have other questions, let us know in the comments as well. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications, because we have more leadership tips coming your way. And make sure you hit up the website, becomingresources.com, for more leadership content and things that can really help you.
And on Friday morning before the Super Bowl, can you imagine? Did you see Patrick Mahomes on the last drive take it down the field and Buckner kick that field goal to make it 31-28? Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.